Come on. Yep.
All right, welcome everybody. So today we are welcoming Juliette Watt, who is joining us to discuss compassion fatigue and how it impacts us as acromegaly patients. Juliette's mission is about making a massive impact in helping people create their life of their dreams. Her second mission is compassion fatigue, a world where she has lived for many years. For 40 years, Juliette lost herself in the care of her mentally ill mother, and then subsequently in the 10-year constant care of neglected and abused animals. Through speaking, workshops, and one-on-one coaching, she helps her clients gain insight into the dark and debilitating syndrome. Juliette lives in beautiful Pagosa Springs, Colorado, with her husband, Jason, their 3 horses, 2 dogs, 2 goats, and a feral barn cat. And also, this program is made possible in part of the grant provided by Pfizer Foundation. Acromegaly community wishes to thank all that have made education by the experts possible. For this, we say thank you. So I'd like to introduce Juliette. I'm going to stop sharing, and then we will let Juliette kick it off. We're also going to leave 15 minutes at the end of the chat for any questions and comments that anybody has. All right, sorry, I've got to unmute you. There you are, Juliette.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. Good to meet you. My name is Juliette, and I'm really kind of honored to be here because I think this is a very important topic. I don't know how many of you have seen the TED Talk I did on it. It's a topic that I had never, ever heard of originally. But when I was, just to give you a brief summary of how I know about this particular condition, I had been asked to do a talk on compassion fatigue, and I was a little bit flip when I said, well, what is that exactly? You know, is it when you're tired of being nice to somebody? And it wasn't, of course. And so I decided to do some research. And as I did the research, it sounded very familiar to me. So I tracked it right back, the actual syndrome, the actual condition. I tracked it back to the gentleman, the professor, who I won't say invented it, but managed to give it a title of what this debilitating, horrible condition is. And mainly, he was attributing it, he was studying PTSD soldiers, combat soldiers that came home with PTSD. And he realized that all the carers, the nurses and the different people that cared for these soldiers, even at home, had started to develop the same syndromes, the same behavioral pattern, the same pain and anguish as their patients that they were looking after. So it was almost like that it's transferring over. Mm-hmm. So the actual definition of compassion fatigue is the emotional and physical burden created by caring for others in distress. And this is a strange topic because mainly it's a strange topic for us regular folk, you know. Mainly it relates to nurses and carers, somebody looking after a disabled loved one at home, firefighters, EMTs, you know, people in that caring profession. So what are the symptoms? What do you feel when you have this? Would you feel irritation, frustration, anger? Why did this happen to me? Why am I having to do this? A chronic isolation, depression, anxiety, feeling really worthless and anxious in your worthlessness, if that makes any sense. No one will ever love me. Why would anybody ever want to be with me? I'm nothing. I've become a stranger to myself. No self-confidence. And the worst of all is this debilitating fatigue that comes with it, which is caused, I think, by the underlying depression. And the coping tools normally in compassion fatigue, as it's originated, is drinking, substance abuse, suicide on many, many occasions, turning on the people that you're actually caring about, more isolation, really isolating yourself. I mean, not even going out to the store. That's real compassion fatigue in its traditional state. So it's caring for others in distress, losing yourself in who you're being for other people. So how familiar does that sound for you guys? It seems to me that the symptoms, that the condition is very much connected. You guys with acromegaly suffer from the fatigue of this condition, the fatigue of coping with this disease, the apathy which comes from it, and not caring or feeling for others. Anybody else doesn't have problems like you do, and people will complain about their problems and they'll tell you about their problems. You're like, you don't have what I have. You don't suffer like I do every day. And I understand that. It makes complete sense. Your mood changes, intense, difficulty in concentration, memory, difficulty in learning, not even really wanting to learn. Why bother? What's the point? And it's tiring. More depression, sadness, a real feeling of anxiety all the time. Of course, a low self-esteem, that's, a given. And very much emotional distress, and this outbursts of different kinds of mood, like anger or sadness, just comes and goes. Do you make bad decisions? Do you have poor strategies for coping? And the coping mechanisms you're trying to use just makes things worse. Then there's the relationship problems. Now, all of this doesn't only apply to you guys, it also applies to people with compassion fatigue in the traditional sense. So you're really not alone. I want you to understand that right now, okay? Relationship problems is a huge one. Who's going to want to understand me? Who's going to want to deal with this physical and mental challenges that I have? I mean, who's going to be able to set that aside and see me for who I really, really am? And then, of course, with that in the relationship is let's talk about the sexual part of it. It's like, not there, because you've had that social withdrawal. You're probably getting rotten night's sleep every night, or some people maybe not even sleeping at all. So this compounded, I want you to understand something extremely important, that what you are experiencing is very, very real. And you are experiencing full-on trauma. This is exactly the same as a soldier standing in the battlefield with bombs going off all around and coming home with that still in him. Your disease has given you that condition. Your disease is the bombs falling around you, and you have trauma, and it's completely and absolutely normal. And that's what I want you to understand, that you are not experiencing something alone. So what can you do? I mean, this is very well, isn't it? I mean, I understand everything and I'm telling you everything about it. And you're sitting there going, of course I know this. I live with this every single day. The most important thing you can do, I think, is understand that all of this is okay. You are perfectly normal in feeling the way you do because of this disease. Understand you are coping with an extremely serious condition that takes all your energy 24/7 just to get through each day. And sometimes you can't even get through that day. Sometimes it's just too darn tiring, right? The fatigue wins. The unknown also of whether it will ever go away, because as I understand, sometimes it goes away, sometimes it doesn't, but who knows? So you've got that realm of uncertainty, and we as humans hate uncertainty. It is something we absolutely despise. It's not good. I like to know what's happening and when it's going to happen. And of course we can't and we don't, but we try to, don't we? We try and control things. And I think that's the most important thing, that it's okay. What you have is okay. And you're very brave to have it and to go through it. But unfortunately, where the compassion fatigue comes into this is, if this makes sense, you have lost the compassion for yourself in the fatigue of your disease. In other words, let's look back at compassion fatigue. So it's the burden of caring for another in distress. Well, you are the person in distress and you are caring for yourself. So you have become not only the carer, but you are also the affected at the same time. So you have compassion fatigue for yourself, if that makes sense at all. And I hope it does. And again, it's not your fault. This illness is not your fault. Where did it come from? Who knows? It's a disease that is not your fault. And so the guilt has to go away. The guilt has to be somehow pushed aside, pushed aside. But let's also take into consideration, every one of you are going to be dealing with this disease in a different way based on past behavior, because past behavior dictates present behavior, doesn't it? So your childhood, how your parents treated you. I know I really don't want to sound like a self-help book, but you know, it matters. I mean, 40 years of my mother turned me, and I didn't even know it, into somebody I didn't know. When she died, and I sort of came to after that, thinking I would feel this immense relief, I didn't. I went right down into the black hole. So that makes me understand that everything that we deal with, which is a real serious challenge, is going to be governed by how we deal with everything else. Let's say we didn't have the disease, how we would be as people. And we forget this. We forget that our parents have put those different genes in us. Some are good, some are dreadful. You know, my mother was depressed. I inherited depression. I've never been depressed in my life. I mean, I'm a chipper, cheery person. So where did this come from? And I started to feel what she felt. So this is compounded for you guys. And your coping methods will be reflected by that. So ask yourself truthfully, do you feel inside that your coping methods are healthy? Do you feel that they're moving you along in spite of what you have? Or has your apathy won? Because I understand apathy. I understand it very, very well. That not wanting to do, see, feel, be anything. Has your lack of interest, enthusiasm, or even concern for others, has that gone away? Do you look at other people suffering from either a head cold or cancer? I mean, let's take the whole broad spectrum. And you can't feel anything for them. Have you become your disease? Has your disease become your identity? And this is, everybody's going to be feeling something right now. And I hope that everybody is thinking perhaps maybe, eeks, yeah, I've done that. Because I have something very special, very different that not many people have in the whole wide world. But you can become that if you're not careful. It can take over. Do you find yourself saying, okay, well, you know what? I am going to change all this. And tomorrow, it's always tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going to start an exercise program. Tomorrow, I'm going to get up and move and do something. Tomorrow, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to take care of myself. And tomorrow never comes. It just gets pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. And we're very good humans. We're very, very good at making excuses. I mean, any excuse in the world can pop up and it's like, oh, can't do it. Sorry, I've got to do this for so-and-so, something work related, anything. We'll just grab at anything so as not to do that. Not to put ourselves through discomfort. Because for a lot of you, I know this fatigue is crippling. And to actually get up, go outside and go for a walk is pretty nigh impossible. So that's when your mind has to change. That's when your whole perspective has to change. So I'm thinking, I'd like to challenge you guys. Could you make yourself feel uncomfortable? Could you go through some of that pain and fight that fatigue and get up and do something? Do something that is not even in your mind right now. Could you make that a must? A life and death thing? Because we can do that in our mind. We can make something a must, an absolutely must do otherwise. Because the way we think can change the way we feel. We know that. But we don't sometimes trust it and we don't sometimes believe it. Kindness, let's start with that. Maybe it's time to show some kindness for yourself, to have compassion in yourself, to really understand. Don't hide this away. Tell it like it is. This is what I've got. What if this disease could be a blessing? I know that sounds absolutely crazy, doesn't it? But what if this is a blessing? What could you know now with this disease that you didn't know before? I mean, the first thing I can think of is how many of us really don't know who our friends are. I mean, we've got friends, right? But we're not really sure. I bet you guys absolutely know who your friends are. Acromegaly will show you that, won't it? Really, really fast. Those people that are close to you, that are dear to you, that actually love you and like you for who you really are, not this thing, those are your friends. So look at what you've got. You've got an advantage over the rest of us. How many of you are really grateful for the very small things? You know, and I'm talking about maybe the weather being nice, trees, green grass, the fact that we're blessed to live, you know, in a country that isn't being bombed every day. And I know I don't want to sound like those, you know, news broadcasts about how terrible everything is, but oh God, they are. I mean, look at what is going on. We're so grateful that we're not being shot at every day, aren't we? Because we don't think about that. We really don't. How can you be grateful for this disease? Grateful. What gratitude could we find? What could you do for others? How could you help someone else in more need than you? And it may not be physical, probably won't be. It probably will be emotional. And you guys, if anybody has gained knowledge, experience on emotional pain, physical debilitation, you guys are sort of the experts on that. So what if you could help somebody else, even within your own community? I mean, maybe you're dealing with it quite well. What if somebody else in the acromegaly community is not? Okay, just something to think about, because I was thinking about this today. Somebody once said to me, a very wise person said to me, we are given nothing we cannot handle. And that is huge, because, you know, you'll go through a death, you'll go through divorce, you'll go through the loss of a child, a miscarriage, and like, how on earth can I handle that? You can. And it comes at precisely the time that you can handle it. So what if you say to yourself, okay, you know what? I have this thing, because it's a thing, right? And I am not, please don't get me wrong, I am not diminishing it in any way, but I'm kind of trying to, in a very respectful way, so that it is not this big, black, ugly goblin that sits in you all day long. Okay, so I have this thing today. It may go away. It may not, but I have it today. Now what? Now what do I do? Create your own certainty. Because right now, all you have is uncertainty. You don't know if you stand up what you're going to feel like. What's the pain today? What's the fatigue today? Will I feel like going outside? It's just something that you have to get past. You have uncertainty, period. That's the way it is. We all do, actually, if we think about it. But, you know, we all try and control it. But you guys really have it. How could you create a purpose? How could you perhaps do something that you have never, ever done before? Never even thought about doing? Could you create a rigid routine every day and think, okay, yes, I do feel fatigued. Yes, I do feel this. Yes, I do feel that. But I'm going to push past it. I'm going to force myself. I'm going to make myself. And you'll be amazed what the mind can do when you push it. You may actually feel better. This is an extraordinary machine we've got in here. And if we give up on it, if we just go, well, take the apathy and sit in it, nothing's going to happen, ever. Could you maybe volunteer for the acromegalia community? Find your passion, find something that you're really passionate about, that you've sort of forgotten about since you got this disease. It's kind of wafted off into the distance. Maybe even when you were a teenager, what did you love to do? Could you create something for the community, a group activity? Maybe you all get together on Zoom and just have a discussion about a topic. It can be something, what's everybody's dream? What was everybody's dream before this crappy stuff came? To something perhaps that everybody's going through in silence. Maybe you could all talk about it with each other. It's amazing the healing power of conversation, because silence doesn't heal. It just buries everything, okay? And if you talk about it, talk to each other and start thinking about maybe if you meet somebody that's not in your community, don't feel embarrassed about what you have. Don't feel self-conscious. To hell with them. If they don't get it, they don't get it. So what? So you look a bit funny. Who cares? It's you. The essence of you is not different. Who you really are is not different. And if they can't take it and if they don't want to, they're gone. Because if you can build that self-confidence within you of I am me and I'm fabulous and I don't care about what I have, you'll be amazed. And listen, it's hard. It will be the single hardest thing you have ever done in your life. You're literally taking a sword and you're going to war. You're going to war with this disease that has taken you down, okay? I mean, maybe something like, if anybody likes, I'm thinking of just these things, somebody likes to read, maybe somebody's read a really, really, really good book. You could all talk about that book. You could all get the book and read it together. Is there something in that book that makes you feel different about what you have, what you're going through? Is it something that can help maybe with dealing with your family, dealing with your loved ones that are looking at you differently? It's amazing. We don't like to look at others in pain. We don't know what to do. We don't know what to say. A very, very dear friend of mine, who was a Broadway gal, she was really doing well. She died yesterday at 56 of a stroke. And we're all brokenhearted. And her husband is left behind. And nobody knows what to say, because you don't, do you? You do not know what to say to someone in grief. Just the same as you don't know what to say to someone who has terminal cancer. You don't know what to say because, oh, I feel sorry for you, or I'm really sorry this has happened to you. Here's the real truth, and this is going to sound pretty harsh. Most people will look at somebody either ill with a disease, cancer, or anything, what you have, a car accident on the side of the street, and the very, very first thing that comes to mind, and it's human nature, and there's nothing wrong with it, but the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, thank God, that's not me. That's what we do. Not that we don't have compassion for it, but that's the first thing. Thank the good Lord, it's not me. Thank God I haven't lost my husband. Thank God, you know what, I don't have that disease. And there's nothing wrong with that, but understand that it does stop people understanding you, and it does, some people have judgment. So I'm saying, put all that aside. What would you do if you didn't have the disease? What would you do if suddenly, and I'm hypothetically, but suddenly you were like, better, it's gone. You don't have it anymore. Now what? I think it's on time to unleash the power of a perspective, of a new perspective, by doing instead of having. focusing on how well instead of how long, and what it means to sacrifice your feelings, these feelings of despair, of pain, of fatigue, of all the things that you guys are going through, to give joy and be of service to another. Maya Angelou said something once. She said, when you're living, you're giving, and you're not living unless you're giving. And that's true. I mean, when we're of service, by helping somebody else, by making somebody else smile, it feels better than anything else in the whole wide world. There is nothing better than that feeling. So perhaps we could do something for someone or someone else, something that, even if it's difficult for you, even if really, really hard, and you're like, I can't. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Be of service. Even if it takes the effort you really don't want to have to muster, start with maybe something small. Do you like dogs? Do you like kitties? Is there an animal shelter near you? Could you just maybe go sit with a dog for a couple of hours? Those guys are lonely. If you're not a particular animal person, maybe you've got a senior citizen home near you. If you're both, then maybe you could take a dog from the animal shelter on a walk to a senior citizen home that accepts people bringing in pets. And there's a lot. I mean, I know that those senior citizen homes they can be lonely places, and most of those guys don't get visitors. They really don't. I understand we can't do any of that right now because of this COVID thing. So I'll talk about that in a second. But this is outside of the COVID thing. Now, I don't know how many of you guys have a job, that you actually can work at home. But those of you who don't, start thinking about, we're in an era now of we can do anything sitting at home. We can do any job at all. I mean, we can help with any facet of something that interests us on our computer. So what could you do as a job? What could you do as work to get paid, but be of service at the same time? And there's so many things. If you really, really wanted to, you would think, okay, what do I love to do? What would I love to do even if I wasn't being paid for it? Write your story down. I mean, I'm sure every one of you have a story. I'm sure every one of you have a story before this disease and now. How many people, and I actually went online to Amazon. There are many books on acromegalia. There is not one, and I may be wrong, but I sure did search. There is not one personal story, like a memoir in a novel sense, you know what I'm saying, about someone's experience with it. They're all mainly what the disease is, what it's about, but nobody's story. Something to think about, eh? I mean, I was surprised. I thought there'd be a bunch of memoirs, but there's nothing, you guys, nothing. And I've done at least a week of research on this, and it's baffled me because I've never even heard of it. And it was so interesting to me that this thing I've never heard of, so many people are suffering from. Why haven't I heard of it? I consider myself pretty well read. So maybe one of you likes to write, is fairly good at it. Maybe just start with an article for a magazine or a newspaper or something, Be brave, think outside the box, write a letter to Oprah. Have you ever heard of this disease? Because a lot of people are suffering from it. I mean, I know I may sound a little bit much here, but you have to think big. You have to think completely outside the box. You have to go to where you cannot believe you can ever get to. That's where you have to put the goal, right above. Like somebody would say, oh, don't be silly. You can't do that. Yes, you can. You can do anything you darn well want to. Anything. I decided to do a TED Talk. Everybody's told me, you don't have the creds. I didn't. I left school, high school. I never went to college. I'm not a professor or anything. I'm not famous, nothing. I said, I will do a TED Talk. And I did. And everyone, it was so funny. Everybody said, oh, we knew you would. Bullshit. You didn't know I would. And that's the whole thing. It's all in here. And I'm not in any way, please don't think I am denigrating or dismissing your suffering. I think it is incredible that you guys are going through this and you're managing to just be there and go through it. And what I'm trying to do is get you past it so that you have a life, so that you're feeling like you're living, you're contributing something rather than sitting in it. Because I know it's a powerful enough disease to just take you over. I understand that. I want you to understand that maybe all the other people that have what you have, how about they don't feel alone? What could you do to help with that feeling of aloneness? It's just me. I'm never going to have a relationship. It's just me. So they've enclosed themselves. What could you do? And that's why I suggested writing your story, something like that. Or maybe, and I don't know how many of you live outside the city in any kind of rural area, but I have found horses are one of the most healing creatures. I mean, when I have a bad day, which I do, I go sit with my horse. And there's a purity in a horse because they don't care what you look like, who you are. They're not like dogs. Dogs need you. They're very much more lovey-dovey and they need you. Horses don't need us. We've pulled them into our life and they're like, all right. They have two needs, justice and respect. That's it. Horses don't love us. But when you stand with them, it's extraordinary. There is a spiritual feeling of truth and just the silence of purity that you feel when you stand with a horse. So if anybody's in a rural area or they can do that and they love horses, I can't tell you how healing that is. I mean, it is extraordinary. Hey, maybe even learn to ride. I mean, you never know. I mean, these are things that perhaps you didn't even think of. How can I learn to ride when I'm in so much pain? Well, let me tell you, I'm 69. Everything hurts. Just everything. But when I get on a horse, nothing hurts. I get off and it hurts again. You know what I'm saying? But it's because I love it so much. It's because it's my passion. Or what about learning something new that you don't think you ever could accomplish? Learning a new, I don't know, a new thing, a new language, like I learned about compassion fatigue. I didn't know about it. Like I learned how to fly an airplane. I'm not suggesting you all go out and fly an airplane, but I'm just giving you it as an example. Just learn something that you don't think you could ever accomplish. Think back to when you were, younger, when you were in your teenagers and your 20s. What did you go, oh, I'd really like to ... What would you like to do? Could you do it now? This is America. They don't have the age discrimination and the class discrimination here like they have in England. In England, it's a whole different ballgame. You have an extraordinary country here where you can choose to do something and people go, oh, well, okay. I mean, nobody really says no. They may be suspicious of you. They may really not think you can, but nobody really ever says no here. So think about that. It takes bravery. It takes courage to jump into the unknown. It takes guts. It takes the courage to go through what you're going through, stand up from that chair, go, ow, she doesn't understand how much this hurts. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. No, I haven't felt it. But yes, I do understand. Oh my gosh. Because I felt it emotionally. I've hurt myself physically. I know that at my age, I force myself sometimes to go out and get on my horse because I do hurt a lot. It would be so nice to sit on the couch and watch Dr. Phil. But I don't. I make myself. Sometimes I really, really don't want to. I go down to the barn and I get the saddle out and I'm like, oh, this damn thing is 50 pounds. Gosh darn. But I make myself. And I'm so happy when I have. And you'll feel that joy. When you do something you don't want to do, and then when you've done it, you feel really proud of yourself. That's how you start the syndrome. That's how you start the syndrome to get out of this. Because we're living in a very divisive world, aren't we? I mean, Anger is dominant right now. Fear is just rampant. We've got this darn election that's sending everybody into a tizzy. Trust has been damaged. And the lack of close physical connections. I don't know yet about you guys. I expect you're feeling it worse than me. I miss hugging people. Isn't it amazing what a hug does? And you can't hug anybody anymore. And it's horrible. I go up to people and I go, oh, I can't. And I got the mask on, and it's hard because you guys need hugs, lots and lots and lots of hugs. And we can't do it right now. So we've got that going on. And even, I mean, listen, regular folk are going nuts. They just can't handle this because their life has been changed against their will. They didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for that disease. But you're strong. This disease has made you strong and you don't know it. I promise you. Just remember that. And unfortunately, this COVID thing could also be a good excuse for you guys to not do anything, because it's like, well, I can't go anywhere. I can't go to the shelter. I can't go walk a dog. Maybe not, but you could make a plan. You could get on the phone. Hey, I mean, I've heard of this happening. What if you said, okay, listen, I can foster a dog maybe until it finds a home. And then maybe the shelter could bring it to you, you know, and you could maintain a social, I mean, there's always a way to get around things. Get on the phone, call. Just call around, call to the senior citizens home, call to the other people in the community. Y'all talk to each other, maybe set up a Zoom meeting with a bunch of you and say, hey, what could we all do? Could we do something? We were all sitting here at home. What could we do? How could we help maybe each other in the community? What's your passion? What do you love to do? And gosh, you never know, guys. You may be super surprised. Make a plan. Be ready for when this COVID thing is over and when we can go out and about. Make a plan. Write it down. What would you do if now we didn't have to wear masks anymore? We could go out and about. Restaurants were open. It was all back to normal. What would you be doing? Think about that and make a plan. Write it down. And just say to yourself, I've got to do it. I've got to. It's a must. If I don't, I'm just going to sit in this chair till I die. And I really think that's not an option. Okay? It's not an option. I mean, if you look around, you see people with one leg that go out and do the Olympics, or I mean, we know this, and I'm not going to go through the list of people that do things that are in a bad shape, but they do, because they say to themselves, I am going to do this. I'm going to get out of this. I have a shitty thing that's happened to me. I'm getting out of it. And have that compassion for yourself. Have that pride in yourself that you are going through this disease and you are still alive and you're still up and you're still thinking and it's still you. And who cares what you look like? This is really important. Who cares? We need compassion and caring much more today, much more than ever. And compassion in yourself, if you really keep doing it, it will explode. And when you give compassion to somebody else, there is no better feeling in the entire world. And even when you don't believe you can, just do something, just do one thing. Because this isn't going to work for you. You're all too good for this. Every single one of you. Every single one of you has a story inside you. And one more quote from Maya, which I think is about the best one of all. Let me find it. Shoot. Where did that go? Where did that go? I'll find it. I am so sorry. It's the greatest one of all, and I can't find it right now. Darn it. Where did it go? Sorry, guys. I'll find it in a second. But that's what she is saying, is there's a story inside every one of us. And if you don't tell that story, you are depriving people of something that they have never read before, something they've never seen before, something they've never known before, and something that tells everybody who you are, what you are, and what you're going through. Don't make yourself a secret, okay? Just don't do that. Just think about caring for yourself, believing in yourself, doing something new, being brave, having courage, and saying to hell with it. I've got this thing, I'm just gonna do it. Okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Juliette. Sorry, my computer died right in the middle.
I saw that. I had a very funny picture on the screen. It was little green stuff. Yes.
Yeah, all right, let me stop the recording.